Reality is the code you write, generating the Pure Land with Buddhist logic.
Alright, let's dive right into it. Welcome to this analysis. Today, we're going to talk about something that will completely shatter your current worldview. If you've always thought that ancient philosophy and modern technology are parallel lines that never cross, this content is going to completely bust that myth. Today, we will see how ancient Mahayana Buddhist scriptures perfectly echo modern coding and even AI concepts like the simulated universe theory. Ready to decode the underlying logic of reality with me? Let's go. To help everyone digest this better, we've broken today's exploration down into 5 parts. The screen of reality. Karma is the code. The dimensional gap. How to generate the pure land. The unbroken loop of practice. We will journey from the most macroscopic truth of the universe all the way down to the daily practices you can start doing right now. All of our theories today are grounded in an ancient text called the 3 R's of Mindfulness. It contains a line that the moment of birth, it is definitively non-birth. At the moment of cessation, it is definitively non-cessation. On the surface, this sounds completely contradictory. Right, it is saying that when you are born, it isn't your real birth. And when you die, it isn't a real death. It sounds incredibly counterintuitive. But this is the absolute core of the material. The birth and death we experience are, honestly, just illusions. Part E, the screen of reality, emptiness and phenomena. Now you must be thinking, how can we visualize the state of neither birth nor cessation in a grounded, easy to understand way? The text offers a brilliant metaphor. Imagine a screen. No matter how wild the plot of the movie playing on it is, no matter how much the imagery changes, characters being born, characters dying, think about the screen itself. Does it change at all? Not one bit, right? In this metaphor, the screen represents our emptiness, where our true nature is the only thing that is real and utterly changeless. Meanwhile, the images on the screen are the phenomena we perceive, the things that appear to be born and pass away. The most crucial takeaway here is that while the images are constantly changing, the screen itself never begins or ends. Keep this underlying logic firmly in mind. Part R, Karma is automated programming. Now that we understand the relationship between the screen and the images, we have to ask a core question: if we are all just images moving around on a screen, who or what is behind the scenes writing the code and rendering this movie? The answer is karma. But in this text's analysis, karma isn't some mysterious, intangible supernatural force. It is, quite literally, the source code. And where does this code come from? It is automatically generated by your wandering thoughts, anxieties and mental impulses every single second of every day. In other words, you are using your mind to render the very reality right in front of your eyes. This concept is mind-blowing. The material directly compares us to characters in a game. Our physical bodies and the environment we find ourselves in, what Buddhism calls the direct retribution and the dependent retribution, are actually just the final graphics rendered by the software we wrote ourselves. Your entire being is running on automated programming, and the inputs for this program are your afflictions and karmic causes. To make this even easier to grasp, the text uses the metaphor of growing a flower. If you want to grow a potted flower, you have to know exactly what its roots, stem, and leaves need. You need to know when to water it and what kind of fertilizer to use. Every single step must be incredibly precise. This is exactly like writing code for reality. You need an incredibly clear intention combined with causal operations that strictly follow the laws of nature, the seeds and the fertilizer. Only then do you get the final output, a blooming flower. If your mind is a chaotic mess, the reality you compile is obviously going to be a glitchy mess too. Part 10, the dimensional gap. At this point, a natural question comes up: if this code of reality is written by us, why do most of us feel absolutely nothing? Why can't we see the code? It all comes down to a dimensional gap. Think about it: when we watch a video using software on a computer that operates entirely within a 2-dimensional plane, but we human beings live in a 3-dimensional physical space. A program inside a RD screen can never comprehend the sighted human operating it. Similarly, this text tells us that reality is actually made of multiple dimensions overlapping one another. Right now, we are limited by our current dimensional perception, just like non-player characters and PCs in a game, so we naturally cannot see the system code of higher dimensions. The text gives a mind-boggling example. It says that even the first Bhumi Bodhisattva, whose spiritual cultivation is already unimaginably high, cannot predict which for the second Bhumi Bodhisattva, who is just one level higher, will lift first or put down first. A higher dimension can look down and see everything clearly, but a lower dimension remains completely blind to the level above it, even if the gap is just a single step. This isn't just a gap in wisdom, it is a literal dimensional strike. Now let's bring the perspective back to reality. In the recorded dialogues of the text, a student brings up a very relatable pain point. He says, I understand the logic on paper, but why is it that when I face even a tiny real-world test, I completely fall apart? This is an excellent question. It perfectly transitions us from high-level metaphysics into the actual mechanics of operation. Part C. Generating the Pure Land. So now that we know how reality is generated, how do we actively leverage these programming mechanisms to generate that ultimate, perfect reality known as the land of ultimate bliss, or the Pure Land? It is actually exactly like writing an AI prompt. A perfect prompt requires 3 conditions. You must know the true nature of reality. You must express your intention with absolute clarity. The most critical point, what the text calls adding nothing, thoughts and concepts are dust, emotions and attachments are grand. To put it simply, we absolutely cannot inject our own delusions and emotional garbage into the prompt. Things must be exactly as they are. Only when your prompt is completely pure can the system precisely generate the reality you want. This is identical to how the most advanced AI video generators work today. But take note, for any software to run on a computer, it needs the right operating system. If you want to generate the highest tier reality, the Pure Land, the text emphasizes that arousing the Bodhi mind is an absolute, non-negotiable rule. It is the mandatory base code. If you don't have this underlying code of the Bodhi mind, no matter how skilled your techniques are, the system won't even allow you to run the program for rebirth in the Pure Land. It is the single, unskippable core principle. Part 2. The unbroken loop of practice. This brings us to the most practical part of all. Once we have the correct underlying code, how do we run this pure program in real time within our daily lives? And how do we ensure the system doesn't crash? The text mentions a fascinating, real-time responsive mechanism. It states very clearly that the exact moment you mentally recite the Buddha's name, your personal lotus flower in the Pure Land already exists. It means you are writing that reality in real time. However, the moment you stop and your code breaks, that lotus flower instantly vanishes. This is entirely a process of dynamic, real-time rendering. The text uses the metaphor of the moon's monthly cycle to describe this loop of focus. For the moon to complete a full, perfect cycle, there can be no interruption. If you recite for a little bit and then go scroll on your phone or party, your programmed computation is instantly cut off. The reality generation loop breaks, and you fail to achieve a seamless, coherent output. You must maintain a focus loop. You can't play it like a game of whack-a-mole, doing it haphazardly. Otherwise, you will never render the final, complete picture. To turn the seemingly abstract philosophy into a concrete action that anyone can follow, the text gives a very specific number. How do we keep this program from disconnecting? The practice is to take a strand of Yaoling Ba prayer beads and spin it through 5 full cycles, which equals roughly 500 continuous recitations. It is through these 500 tangible, countable, mechanical movements that you force the system to maintain a stable output of code, leaving absolutely zero room for distracting thoughts to interfere. Conclusion. We are nearing the end of our exploration today. The text concludes with a profoundly beautiful verse that perfectly summarizes everything we've talked about. Birth and cessation are ultimately non-birth. Yet birth appears where there is no birth. How could the land of bliss ever bar people from entering? Who would have thought that within the 10,000 fathoms of the red dust world, the lotus flowers still bloom, cycling flawlessly like the moon. This means that all phenomena of life and death are ultimately dependent on emptiness. Then the pure land called the land of bliss has never set up a threshold to ban anyone from entering. As long as you have the ability to write the code correctly and focus on completing it in one breath, then even if you are trapped in the chaotic, noisy red dust of the mundane world, your lotus flower will still continue to bloom. This is an ultimate reality open to everyone. Honestly, this analysis gives us a completely fresh perspective to re-examine ancient wisdom. I want to leave you with one final question to ponder. If all the reality you are experiencing right now, your environment, the people you meet, the things that happen is truly just the final output rendered by an automated program inside your mind, what kind of code are you writing for your future self at this very moment? Hope today's content brought you some fresh inspiration. See you next time.